Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the magic of painting. My name is Linda Riesenberg Fisler. Thanks for tuning in. So if you watched episode 1 through 3, probably noticing that there are some changes that I've made. I actually talked to my producer and told him that I wanted, since I had these colors already on my palette, that I wanted to make a few changes in the color range. I really wanted to let people feel like they're looking out over the ridges of the Blue Ridge Parkway. Added some pink into the yellow, um, pulled down with my palette and messed with some blues in the back, some darker values kind of spotted through so that you get the idea that there's a ridge there. When we get into the episode that talks about values and finishing touches, et cetera, we'll go more into that. One of the reasons why I wanted to do it now was it was all wet, so I could very easily manipulate the paints, for example, using just the corner of my glove and pulling down. But I wanted to get the feel, I wanted you all to have the feel for seeing those mountains in the back and all those ridges that I get to enjoy pretty much on a daily basis. So works out pretty nice. So I'm going to readjust, or I'm going to have the camera guy readjust the camera down a little bit. You'll be able to see what I'm doing. Also, I got rid of this really bright green that was here, made it more blue, added some other green to it. As I'm working with the ridges in front, you'll see more and more of that. So if you could pan, this value is just a little bit too dark. So I'm going to do what I love doing with palette knives. And that's, since this is kind of tacky and wet, let's kind of play with the value a little bit before I get started mixing up some of the other colors. Still want this back here to be relatively blue compared to the front. The adjustments I'm making, the producer just asked me, the adjustments I'm making is kind of just from feel, from having painted for so long. It's like I just don't like that value that's coming through. I don't like all the green that's in there. I would definitely not have a problem with a lighter blue-green on the cooler side. This particular color will probably go on the ridge that is below it, so that then you can see that that color of green is much closer to the value that I want there. So knowing that, I'll make that more of a color shift. Then I will a value shift. And I could take some of that color and move it up. Move the ridge up a little bit so I can squeeze another ridge in there, perhaps. And as we talked about before, the Blue Ridge Mountains are older than the Rockies. And because they're older than the Rockies, they have rounded peaks, unless, of course, you see some granite. And maybe it's not so round then, but it's still they're still pretty rounded compared to the Rockies. Let's turn on a light, overhead light, so I can see more. Yeah, that's about where I want it to be. Okay. Now, the one thing that I did like was the feeling of a sun ray sneaking in here. So I'll put those back. Getting a little extra for your money here. Speaking of which, if you could go out and buy my producer and director and camera people a coffee, that would be great. They would appreciate it. Now I want to mix up that value and range for the next range of mountains. And it'll be starting to turn into more of a green. So see if I would put that green right there. You could see the difference in the value, and the jump is way too big, but down here, it'll work. So as a reference, I'll keep that there, and I'll try to mix up another color that I like better. I'm going to use some of that gray blue from before, some of the yellow cadmium, and I'll add some white once I get the color that I want. The one thing that I love about painting with palette knives is I don't have to pick up a palette knife to mix colors with. I just basically use the knife I'm going to be working with. I want to check, make sure that value is about where I want it. Yep. Another mountain ridge here. I'm going to just put that up this way a little bit. I'm going to grab some of this color that was in the clouds, add a little blue to it. Perfect. So I told you that there's some granite tops. To some of these ridges. I'm going to put him in there. Since this is wet. Kind of mixing the two. I'm going to come back with that granite color that I just mixed up, that orangish color. I'm just going to put another peak here. Like so, I'm going to come back with some violet just at the top here. Just bring it down a little bit. Like the sun's hitting off of that granite piece. Very light pastel color. That works. I'll throw some of this color into this blue that's here. Again, I'm going to throw some of that granite area here. Some areas of it. So we get a feel. A little different color in there every once in a while. Doesn't hurt. And the door opening there for the light to come through. So when I use my knife, I have very little pressure on it, barely not touching it at all. got some texture here that I really don't need it to be. I'm going to add just a touch of white. To the colors, a little touch of ultramarine blue. Come back. Touch that up. Sometimes you can't distinguish between the different mountain peaks, except for a touch of color here and there. Yeah, maybe there's granite or something that's a bit different. Maybe there's some balsam trees that are making the color split shift. Maybe there's a lower cloud. Just sometimes you just can't tell. So for right now, what I'm going to do is I just want to lay in colors, get all of this grayscale done with, over with. Then the adjustments and refining is the fun part that we do. Just throwing in a little bit of that brownish color, just to give it, just to break up some stuff. You know, we have forest fires here in North Carolina, just like they do out in California, only ours doesn't burn quite like they do out in California. It's an older forest. There's a lot of volunteers, which is very nice to help with that. So I'm just throwing in some grays here and there to kind of differentiate between the two mountains, peaks. You know, I may come back, put a hard edge in there. I may not. Who knows? Very hard with studio lighting, maybe to pick up just that little bit of value change that I have there. This particular mountain range is just calling out for granite color that I mixed up. It feels like it's coming towards us. Okay, good. Just checking a color. Come put more of that on there. It's a little lower. I'm gonna make a color change in that area. You may not be able to see it. We gotta seem to have a light in there, but I'm gonna block some of it, so see what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna add some blue there. I want to come back with that granite color and make that an edge. This just adds a little color, shows a difference in the colors that you might see out along the range. I had somebody ask why I don't put me on camera. All the lights in here, it's very, very, very hot. So if you saw me, I'd be sweating. So besides, the painting's the star. Okay. It's the ray. Continuing ray of sunshine that comes back that way. Catching a little bit of light here and there. Okay, so now as this is getting darker and as this is getting closer to us, we can have more texture, maybe add like something that looks like a tree line, following ridges that are there, and they get values that I painted them. As I said, I use my values study to kind of tell me where I want a ridge, where I want to see a difference. This particular ridge is not lighter than this ridge. It'll be darker than this ridge, but for some reason I didn't paint it that way. So, you know, the old saying, do as I say, not as I do. So what I want to do very quickly here is mix up. And I won't be graying this down as much as I had in the past. You know, now we're into the area that we can see and enjoy. But I definitely want them to be close to all the same value. You know, one green may be mixed up from my ivory black, one green may be mixed up with my ultramarine and cadmium yellow deep, one may be mixed up using some alizarin crimson in it. It's all different kind of ways that you can make greens, all in the same value. It's just a matter of what pigment you're going to choose to mix things up with. It's got a little bit of a... So again, not really worried. This isn't finishing touches. This is, I want all of the black and gray off of my painting so that I can get back and start making adjustments, start playing with color, atmosphere, and, you know, not have to worry as much about the value of the painting. This guy back here. Kind of a continuation of the value and the color before. Probably come back here in a second and I need to fill that in with color at this point. Okay. I'm sawing back and forth to kind of give it a tree edge. Now this ridge in front of it is going to be blocking most of this out and will be a very, very dark color to it. I'm going to throw in just a touch of this here. Always seems to get kind of foggy down at the bottom of the mountains. Sunset occasionally. So I'm going to just kind of add in a little bit lighter value of this behind it. Mix it in. Come back with that darker value. Scrape that in. Make that feel. Okay. Come back with this lighter area here. I'm not going to worry about this tree. I'm going to put that back in. But for right now, I just want to cover it up with the value that I want it there with, which is this guy, the one I'm laying down now. You drew a tree once, you can draw a tree again. And no, I didn't use a fan brush. I used my palette knife. But I'll definitely want, when I make that tree again, I'll definitely want this color coming through. So I'm going to continue this ridge here. The Smokies, if you're hiking, you know all too well that there's more than one ridge that you can hike along. To what's there, a little bit bluer. Sorry, I had some white on my knife. Let me go back and reload this. A little bit bluer, and you know, some of that can live over here to make it continual. Again, ridge line. Might be able to see some trees. Doesn't have to be a straight thing. Bring it down into here. This tree will distinguish itself as another ridge. If you ever come down to the Smokies, you have to do the Blue Ridge Parkway. That's where you'll see what I'm trying to capture here. Lots of texture here. I must have been getting tired. So you really don't need to, although I think I did a demo of this somewhere for Mastrius or something, and I think I was demonstrating how to get texture with my palette knife. So it's pretty textured. It's fine. It'll get textured again. It's not that big a deal. I'm going to put some of this blue-gray color down into here so that it will come through when I'm painting that tree again. Okay. Let's come back with this lighter color. Kind of mix that in some areas. Kind of give that illusion of fog building up. Darker green in here. And just a note, a little comment to my producer. I'm not going to put the trees in on this episode. Mainly because I think this will be long enough for folks. This is going to end up being grasses. And so if some of that gray comes through, not a big deal. But this is the value that I want it to be. You can see how now that starts to set off a lot of the ridges down there, a lot of the ridges overall. Almost looks black, doesn't it? And we'll do a close-up of it. See if I put some more light. There you go. How about that? Thank you. So that's my darkest dark. As you could tell, when we didn't have light on it, it was very dark, almost as dark as that value, if not darker than the one behind it. So this is my darkest dark. All through this whole shape down here is my darkest dark. So here you can see I'm basically working dark to lighter. This value behind it's going to be lighter. It's going to be a little warmer. This gives me a lot of room to work with colors and, you know, azalea bushes or some sort of nice foliage that we see along the parkway. Okay, now different color, which is what I want. Very similar or close to value. I'm not worried at this point about any stems or anything like that. This is just getting my basic values in, my basic shapes. So I can come back, change colors again, which I may, for finishing touches, do a mixing colors for finishing touches. Maybe we'll do a show with that. And mixing colors for adjustments and things like that too. We can do that. You see, again, I'm trying to cover these little trees. I'll come back and create them later. I just want that gray off the canvas at this point, gray and black. Now, the green that I'm going to put down here, I wanted to show you a difference. This is ivory black and cadmium yellow. And you can see the difference in that green. A little warmer, right? Which you wouldn't expect, but you might not expect it. I like using my ivory black green, so for a warmer color. So the color I'm laying down here, it's very thin. The color I'm laying down here is very, very thin. And I just wanted to, like I said, get my canvas completely covered on this episode. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about making adjustments. And trying to tie the whole painting together. You can see I'm mixing a lot of different greens in here. It's closer to me, so I'll see a number of different greens. I want it a little darker so that when I put in those stems and the flowers, I have a dark background that it can play against. Darker than before. I'm going to mix up a little bit more of the ultramarine blue and cad yellow. I want to cover up that black on the other side. Talk a little bit about the next show. It's okay, that is mixing. It's not the finish, it's just the foundation and shapes. So this is a very good foundation, and we have a lot more to do on this, but basically we'll start to refine these shapes. You can see I started to do that a lot back here. So this just looks like a big shapes of dark colors and things like that. So there's things that we'll need to work on there as far as, having off values or values that I need to work with, change. All of that will happen when we start talking about making adjustments to your painting on the next episode. This is why my producer hates me. Because I'm always dropping back in when I'm finishing up a show. In the next episode of The Magic of Painting, we'll probably come back. We work some areas of the sky, play a bit more with the stuff in front, getting it to where I would like it to be, to look at things like edges, the edges when I'm looking out into the distance versus the edges that are close to me, the values, all the different things that make a painting. But I'll be looking at the different mountains and seeing what the effects are. And we'll come back and do a show on making adjustments to your painting, dropping in focal points, talking a little bit about edges, soft and hard and lost and found. These are perfect. These mountains back here are perfect for lost and found edges, especially when their values are so close. So we'll be doing that. And then the finishing touches episode after that will be the finishing touches to the actual painting. And we'll be calling it done, and you'll see me sign it. So stay tuned next time. Thanks for tuning in. Please, please share with folks. You can buy us a coffee. It's on the Art Chat TV channel. Treehouse Studios would love it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.